Welcome aboard Rocket Ship, the platform with the most relevant content for competitive examinations. This is Rocket Ship IAS Lab and continuing with our series on answer writing for general studies papers of civil service main examination. We take up a question that you might come across in GS paper 2. Here goes the question. There is a need to balance independence of judiciary with diversity in judicial appointments. Elaborate. Give suitable examples including judicial pronouncements, case law, etc. As you can see, the question as usual has two parts. In the first part, we have to talk about how we have to ensure that there is greater diversity in appointments to the judiciary at the same time as respecting the independence of the judiciary. In the second part, you have to talk about, as is customary with questions of GS paper 2, you have to talk about case law, that is the various cases which have been pronounced by the Supreme Court and other higher courts, or for that matter, some other judicial pronouncements, etc. We are introducing our answer with a piece of statistics that would establish that there is a need to diversity, that is, there is indeed a need for greater diversity in judicial appointments. That is, as per the latest available figures, out of the full strength of the Supreme Court of India, that is 34, or one Chief Justice of India and 33 other judges, which is the full strength of the Supreme Court of India, the 4 judges are women and 3 belong to the scheduled castes. As you can see that this is the highest representation for women and scheduled castes ever. A quick glance would show that it is not representative of their share in India's population. That is, while their number, their share in the total, you could say, judicial strength of the bench is indeed rising, it is not still up to the mark considering their own share in the population. It is not proportionate to their share in the population. This has justifiably led to calls for a more diverse bench at both Supreme Court and the High Courts. It merits a quick discussion why there is a need for more diversity in the higher judiciary. So what are the imperatives of diversity in judicial appointment, or like what are the needs of necessity of diversity in judicial appointment? First, it would ensure that historical justice is done to the marginalized sections and the weaker gender. Again, the point is, most of us would agree here, actually the most of the, you could say, well-meaning people would agree that these sections, that is the deprived sections and women, actually they have got a very raw deal in our entire history. Now it's the time to ensure them historical justice. Again, you can make it out, you can intuitively understand it, that encouraging these sections and women to, you could say, it would encourage these sections and women to serve on the bench. It would resolve the problem of judicial vacancies. Like, it would mean that it would be a signal to women and the people from deprived sections that they can indeed hope for, they can indeed aspire to go to the highest echelons of the judiciary in India. That way it would be like it would serve as a motivation for these people to join the lower judiciary. Moreover, a more sensitive judiciary which is aware or cognizant of the grievances of the weaker sections, it would lead to a more sensitive judiciary, as people from these sections, that is women, and from the deprived sections, they would have a first-hand experience of the problems and plight of people from the deprived sections, or for that matter women issues. And it might sound counterintuitive, but it would essentially strengthen judicial independence. as it would foil many attempts at politicizing the issue of low representation of these sections and women on the judiciary. Moreover, now talking of the intrinsic value of diversity. While we are indeed taking up the position that diversity has its own benefits, but we have to also talk about the great principle of diversity that the Constitution has a commitment to. We do not have to even discuss what could be its tangible benefits. Even its intangible benefit of like a more, you could say, diverse and equalitarian, or for that matter, equal society, it would lead to that. This is an intrinsic value of diversity. Elaborating on these points, while not explicitly saying so, the Constitution carries a commitment to ensure historical justice to women, scheduled castes and tribes, and socially backward classes, as can be read in Article 15, 3 and 4. This principle of historical justice extends to judicial appointments as well. These two articles, that is Article 15.3 and 15.4, talk about special provisions for women and people from the deprived sections, that is people from scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and the backward classes, as the Constitution itself has a commitment to for special treatment to these sections, due mostly to historical injustices that have been meted out to these sections. Appointing more and more of these people to the bench, that is to the higher judiciary, would be one of the means to ensure them historical justice. Moreover, a large proportion, that is almost 32% of the sanctioned positions in high courts remain vacant. This is a fifth in subordinate courts, that is almost a fifth of these sanctioned posts in subordinate courts remain vacant. Greater representation to women, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and backward classes at apex judiciary will encourage these groups to pursue a career in judiciary with greater enthusiasm. That is, it would signal to them that they can actually hope to join the highest echelons of judiciary in India. That would serve as a motivation for people from these sections, that is the deprived sections, or for that matter women, to join the judiciary. This will help deal with case backlog in India's courts as well. As you can understand very well that one of the reasons, at least, why the high case backlog remains in India is due to the large number of vacancies in the judiciary. If more judges could be appointed to these positions, it would mean that more cases can be actually disposed of. A more diverse judiciary will have greater appreciation of the issues specific to deprived sections and women. Again, the point is, we are not arguing that people who are not from these sections would have no appreciation of the issues, or the, for that matter, the plight faced by the weaker sections, women, etc. But again, it always helps if you had first-hand experience of the, you could say, issues faced by these sections, or for that matter, they are like very helpless plight. Moreover, counterintuitively, a more diverse judiciary will only strengthen its independence, as it will foil or preempt the efforts to politicize these issues, that is the non-representation of these sections by caste-based mobilization. That is sometimes very, you could say, particular caste-based parties, etc. have called for, you could say, greater representation for deprived section and women in the judiciary. This is mostly a political stunt actually, and you could say preempting these groups by appointing more and more people from these sections and women to the higher judiciary would indeed preempt them, or like foil these politicization attempts. Now, talking of the requirement of independence of judiciary as held by the 3 judges cases of 1981, 93 and 98, and the NJAC, that is National Judicial Appointment Commission Act of 2015, etc., independence of judiciary in appointment is a sacrosanct principle. Actually, if you could recall that the Supreme Court had held the NJAC Act of 2014 ultra vires, that is like against law, because it actually held that the independence of judiciary, at least in the matters of appointment, is a part of the basic structure of India, of the Indian Constitution, and it cannot be taken away even by an amendment. So the point is, we have to indeed stick to this principle of judicial independence, that is autonomy of the judiciary in appointments to the higher judiciary. At the same time, we have to consider the, you could say, effects or the concomitants of diversity. The Honorable Collegium has an opportunity to ensure a more diverse bench at higher courts. And now, if space and time permits, it would be apt to recall Honorable Chief Justice of India, the then Chief Justice of India, Honorable D.Y. Chandrachud, that citizens' faith in judiciary will deepen if he sees his own reflection on the bench. That is, if a woman were to see that another woman is heading the bench, or it's like she is presiding over the bench, she would have greater confidence of talking about the women issues, or for that matter, if a person from the deprived sections were to see that the on the other side, that is the person presiding over the bench, that is the honorable judge, is a person from his very group, so he would have greater confidence in the judiciary itself, and in fact he would be more open to talk about issues that he won't be as comfortable talking about if it was someone else on the bench. So this was on the imperative of diversity in judicial appointments, as well as the need of balancing it with independence of judiciary. This is all for today. We would reassemble for the next lecture in a few days. As usual, we wish you all the best. Thank you.